What is up, guys? NYK at 31 here. Going to be talking about the Madden 19 franchise mode deep dive a little bit here. I'm using one of my online CFM games, one of the last ones I played for this year, as a matter of fact. I'm retired now from Madden 18. Had a good run, and now I'm just kind of recharging the batteries until Madden 19 drops. But anyhow, a lot of stuff to cover, and a lot of this has been pointed on or pointed out already by several folks in the community. But I just kind of want to give my 2 cents and kind of give my thoughts and impressions as far as what they are looking to do, what they envision franchise mode to be in the future, and how these changes may or may not impact the game, both on the positive side and the unintended consequence side. These games have been going down the path of player archetypes for a couple of years now. NBA 2K has them. APF kind of had it with their ability system where you couldn't see the ratings of the players. All you saw were attributes. MLB The Show has had it for the past couple of years. NBA Live is going to be doing it. FIFA is going to be doing it. PES has been doing it for quite some time, actually. And now Madden's on that train as well. And, it's kind of that next level of trying to create player, I guess, I don't really want to say intangibles. It's kind of hard to translate intangibles to a video game, but more differentiation as far as how they stand out on the field or on the court. But basically, what you have is that you have these different archetypes for each position. And then you have the coaching schemes that you can plug those players into, and this is supposed to work together to give the players and the teams more of an identity and allow users playing CFM either online or offline to mold their team with the players that they want to plug in to play the type of team that they're trying to build. Now, the question that I had when hearing about this was, how do the player ratings play into all of this? What player ratings are not only the most relevant for the player archetype that you have, but how are those ratings reflected in the type of scheme that you're trying to play? Like, for example, the QB archetypes, you have strong arm, scrambler, West Coast, field general. What ratings are the most relevant for those archetypes, and what impact do those ratings have? From what I understand, the archetypes give you an idea of what type of ratings are most relevant for that player, what he's best suited for, and it impacts their ability to progress within a particular scheme. Like if you have a strong arm quarterback and you have him playing in a West Coast scheme, he's not going to progress the same way you would have him progress if you had him in a vertical passing scheme. That's my understanding of it. I may be wrong. That's a good start. I would prefer to have the ratings be more dynamically affected by change of scheme. There's a couple of ways you can look at that. On one hand, a good player is a good player. Some players are good enough that they're going to be able to fit, anywhere you plug them in. Tom Brady can play in any system. Big Ben can play in any system. Antonio Brown can run every route. Julio Jones can run every route. There are routes that only Julio Jones can run. As a matter of fact, the Falcons have a route they call the Julio route because he's the only one on the team that can run it. Stuff like that. But you also have players like Tyrod Taylor. You can win 9 to 10 games and make the playoffs putting a power run, zone read, RPO type of scheme around Tyrod Taylor. If you put Sean Payton in New England's offense, is he going to get the same kind of results playing that way? Likely not. Alex Smith, he thrives under Andy Reid. Andy Reid's one of the quintessential modern West Coast guys in the league. If you try to plug him into Sean Payton's offense, for example, he's going to have the same kind of success? Likely not. They'd have to tinker some things to custom the offense to fit his skill level because he can't make the throws Drew Brees can make. Jared Goff went from a kid who looks completely lost to all of a sudden having a clue when he was with a coach that ran a system that fit his skill set and that he was comfortable with and resembled what he was running in college. You know, things like that. That doesn't mean that the player should be completely worthless if you're using him in a way that's less than optimal, but you shouldn't feel comfortable playing that way. The way that I would love to see this work going forward is that, for example, if I have Tyrod Taylor and I want to run a zone read RPO game, which isn't in the game, by the way, but if let's say it was, I like to see Tyrod Taylor get ratings boosts to his play action and throw on the run ratings, for example. And if I tried to put him into a vertical offense, he suffers ratings hits to his deep and intermediate throwing accuracy. Because again, he's not being used in a way that fits his archetype optimally. That is something that I hope they take it into consideration with future iterations and making this more fleshed out. But there's some archetypes here that I find interesting. Wide receivers, for example, deep threat possession, red zone slot receiver. I like that there's now a depth chart slot and an overall for the slot receiver position. Again, going back to my Antonio Brown, Julio Jones example. Again, there are some guys, doesn't matter where you line them up. They're going to be good. They're going to get the job done. You pretty much just throw them out there and forget about them. Other guys are a little bit more specialized or has to be used in a little bit more specialized manner, like your Wes Welkers, for example. A guy who's smaller, quicker than fast, doesn't have the vertical speed to stretch the field vertically, all those typical possession receiver cliches that we all know and love. I like that that spot has its own depth chart slot and it has its own overall. A guy could have a 78 overall, for example, as an X or a Z, but as a slot, maybe he's an 85 because his ratings reflect that slot wide receiver skill set. Corners the same way. You have your man-to-man zone coverage slot corner archetype. Again, your slot corner, generally speaking, has a different set of skills than your outside guy. He's usually not as big, usually not as fast. Again, he's more quicker than fast. He's good in space. And he's also usually a guy who doesn't mind mixing it up in the running game. Again, I'm glad to see these positions have their own separate depth chart slots and their overall ratings reflect their ability to play that position. There are some questions that I have about how this is all going to work. Like, for example, if I'm playing somebody who likes to put Julio Jones, again, as an example, or Antonio Brown in the slot a lot, I don't want my slot corner necessarily to be covering that guy. Am I still going to have the ability to set my defensive matchup so I don't get caught in a situation I have that guy covering who I want him to cover? And another thing that I have a question about as well, again tying into the wide receiver and the corner matchups, is the fact that there's now separate route running ratings for wide receivers based off of short, intermediate, deep. Again, this is potentially great when you talk about specialization and kind of tailor fitting where you want guys lined up and what you want guys doing based off of their skill set. Like, for example, when I run my run and shoot and spread offenses, I like my guys to fit a particular mold. I like my outside guys to be big, fast, jumping, catching traffic, spec catch guys. I like my slot guys to be agile, route running, catching traffic guys. I don't really care about their height or their vertical speed that much. I want them catching bubble screens and doing damage after the catch, drags doing damage after the catch. I also want them to be able to be good enough route runners to catch the occasional deep corner and have just enough speed to be able to run the occasional deep seamer every now and then. But I get a little bit nervous when this game decides it wants to add ratings because we still have ratings that we're not quite sure about what they do. And I'm not sure that Clint always knows what all these ratings do and how they affect gameplay in certain situations. So unless that's been cleaned up a lot, adding more ratings to that layer is something that might cause unintended problems. I'm sure there's going to need to be tuning and fixes to some of these things as we go along. That's just inevitable. And also, going back to these route running tiers, if we're going to have those, there's a whole lot of routes that need to be fixed because there's a ton of routes that you can't use because of spacing issues, movement issues, and a combination of both. For example, it is currently impossible to replicate Julian Edelman in this game. And it's not because he's not fast. The reason why you can't use him for anything more than really drags in this game is because most of the routes you will want to use him on, you can't run. Sluggos don't work. These receivers take so many false steps off the line of scrimmage that whip routes don't work. You can run a quick slant if you want to, but he's a catch and traffic receiver in a game where you can't catch the ball in traffic. He has the route running to run deep outs and deep corners, but it's going to take him a little while to get downfield. So what can you use him for? You can't use him for hardly anything. So unless these route releases and spacing issues are fixed, along with the player movement being improved so that agility differences can be taken advantage of, and if he isn't able to hold on to the ball on contact, which is one of his greatest strengths, you're not going to be able to use that type of player very well. So again, it remains to be seen. Like that play action Poco pass that my opponent just ran, that post corner, you can't throw that route. I don't care who you're running it with. It's going to take a million years to develop, and the way the defenders can move laterally in this game, you're not going to conflict him. So that's a play that's borderline useless. So that is stuff that bears watching and seeing how all this comes together. Defensive schemes, base 4-3, multiple 4-3, base 3-4, multiple 3-4, Tampa 2, 4-6 defense. Pretty straightforward there. I mean, if I really wanted to be a stickler, instead of saying multiple 4-3 or multiple 3-4, just call up multiple defense, because if you're multiple, what front you base out of is irrelevant. Outside of what type of gap system you want to play, one gap, two gap, or a combination of both, you're really looking forward to versatile players that you can line up in a multiple amount of ways and use a lot of exotic sub packages to get as many versatile athletes on the field as you can. Get 46 out of there. No one plays base 46 anymore. No one really plays base Tampa 2 anymore, really, to be honest. Tampa 2 is basically a situational third and long play call. Cover 2 is basically a red zone coverage now. Very few teams base out of cover 2, Tampa 2 anymore. The new Tampa 2 is how the Falcons, Jags, Seahawks, Niners, for example, play. It's more of a philosophy now as opposed to a base coverage, since the coverage shell has changed from a 2 deep to a single high look. And you have teams like the Panthers that play a ton of quarters coverage. The philosophy is the same as a Tampa 2, but the coverage looks have changed. But again, that's more of me being anal. For video game purposes, that's perfectly fine. I don't see any reason why you can't set your scheme to be Tampa 2, run the Seahawks playbook, and play loads of cover 3. So, that's not really a big deal. I'd like there to be a base nickel scheme and a base nickel playbook. Teams are in 11 personnel, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, more than they're in anything else. Defenses are in their sub packages more than they're in their short yardage and base sets. That's just a fact of the modern NFL. For some reason, some sim gamers like to rebel against this fact, and I get why. This is not a game that has historically handled blocking nickel and dollar fronts very well, especially odd nickel fronts. The blocking on odd nickel fronts has been downright brutal. So stuff like that would have to be fixed in order for a base nickel scheme to be fair. I get that, but again, something for down the road that needs to be looked at and considered. They did add a new nickel formation, nickel 425G, I think it's called. Without seeing it, I'm willing to bet that's a 425 under or something close to it. There just better be plays in it. That's all I gotta say about that. Don't put that formation in and have nothing of use in it at all. That would just be irritating. So yeah, that pretty much covers the franchise deep dive. I think I pretty much touched on what is relevant. I don't really care much about, what's going on the menu screens. We do have a draft class creator. That'll be fun for online and offline CFM guys who want to create draft classes to mirror guys who are coming out in the college ranks. It would be even better if we had an NCAA game to parallel it with, but we won't go there. We all miss NCAA. That's a given. I didn't see much information as far as the draft layout unless I missed something. I'm kind of scrolling down now. You have immersive environments, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's just, from what I can see here, that's pretty much it. I just see screenshots here from different menus in franchise mode. Not a lot of information, not any information as far as draft layout, draft scouting, and all that good stuff, which I feel is very important. I'm surprised that's not in here. So, that's pretty much that. So you have some good information, the player archetypes, the schemes, and all that good stuff. We'd like to have seen more as far as what's going on with things like the off season. That would have been nice to put in there. And other than that, just got to see how it all plays out in action. So there you go. This game's about to wind down. Hope you guys enjoy. Love to hear your guys' thoughts, and I will talk to you all later. Peace.
This type of a situation, late game situation, what are we going to do when we have the opportunity? They've called these plays a bunch of times.
They've got his man complete. 20, 10, and he's into the end zone. Back to throw. Incomplete. And a failure to And now the Jets are going to get this one, and that might be all she wrote. Well, fourth quarter. The Jets, with victory seemingly in hand, they take the knee. Well, Charles, the forecast called for rain throughout the entire game, and we got rain throughout the entire game. But these two teams, they had fun getting dirty out there. They love the slop.
Did you trust the forecast ahead of time? Are you one of those guys that's skeptical about it, or did you trust it?
But when I saw just a big blob of green on the radar, I said, okay, let's trust.
Yeah, and that's why I'm glad you took my advice. Got your notes laminated, because, you know, open-air booth, that rain can affect us as well, although not as much as the guys on the field. But let's face it, it's kind of fun to watch these types of games, isn't it?
It is. By the way, how impressive is it that you travel with a laminator? I didn't even know there was a portable laminator.